promised you guys that it wouldn't get any more difficult, and actually some of them would be a lot easier than the ones that we did the other day. So here's an example of one that's going to be a lot easier than the one we did the other day. So I've got x squared minus 4x plus 4. Do I have a greatest common factor? It is not 4. It's a 1. There's nothing you can pull out because there's not a 4 with that first term, so you can't pull the 4 out. And you don't have an x with the last term, so you can't pull an x out. So there is no greatest common factor with this. You're going to see a lot of them that do not have greatest common factors. So don't forget about greatest common factor. You want to check for it first, but this one does not have one. So that means we're going to be trying to factor this into two sets of parentheses. My first term is x squared. What could I multiply together to get x squared? 1x and 1x is the only thing that's going to work. So that makes that easier because you know it's the only option. My last term is positive 4. This is the first one we've had where we had a positive number right there. So what numbers could I multiply to get positive 4? 2 and 2. 4 and 1.
Negative 2 times negative 2.
Very good. Negative 2 times negative 2, or
But you do the same thing with the x.
negative 4 and negative 1. That's a very good question, Lanaya. You can make the x's negative, but it's, in general, going to make your life difficult if you do it. So I would always try to deal with like the positives and negatives using that last term, and I would always use positives for the first term because it can be done with negatives for the first terms, but it just makes it much harder to work out if you do it that way. So now let's look at our middle term. What's our middle term? All right, so if I get a negative 4 in the middle, is there any way I could use both of these positive numbers right here? I could not, because I won't ever get a negative. If everything's a plus sign, everything I get will be plus. So even though 2 times 2 and 4 times 1 do give me positive 4, because I've got that negative in the problem, I know I'm going to need to use the negatives. Okay? So, Giancarlo, which one do you want to try? The 2's or the 4 and 1? Okay? So if we try 4 and 1, we're going to have a minus 4 and a minus 1. And we're going to check to see if this multiplies back to give us what we started with. So x times x will give us x squared. This will give me negative 1x. This will give me negative 4x. And this will give me positive 4. Now, really, if you don't even check the first and the last, that's okay, because they should be right based on the numbers that you're picking to plug in. But am I going to get a negative 4x in the middle? Not a positive 4x. Negative 5. So that did not work. Switching is not going to change anything whenever you just have x's. It doesn't change. So let's try the negative 2 and the negative 2. And you may start to get to where you can kind of do these a little bit in your head. Because they're a lot easier. So negative 2 and negative 2, that's going to give you a negative 2x and a negative 2x. There in the middle, when we put those together, we get negative 4x. So that is correct. Our answer for this one, I'll leave myself much room, is x minus 2 times x minus 2. Now, let me show you one more thing. Sometimes they may not write the answer like that. They might write it, because those two are exactly the same, they might write it like this, x minus 2 squared. Because remember when we were multiplying, if we had x minus 2 squared, we wrote it twice, x minus 2 times x minus 2. So sometimes you might see the answer choice given like that, if it's multiple choice. Okay, questions? All right, here's our next one. There you go. What do we look for first every time? Greatest common factor. Do we have one? X. So we're going to take out an x. We're going to write it out front. We'll have x squared plus 2x plus, oh, what goes on the end? Just a 1 there. Like the one before. So the first thing we will look for every time is the greatest common factor. So this one did not have a greatest common factor, so we didn't do that step. But for this one, every term has an x, so we want to pull that out first. It'll make it a lot easier to factor it if we do that part first. Okay? Then the x is going to just kind of hang out front, and we're going to factor like we did up here for the last problem. All right, so for my first term, now I'm not, for the first term, I got x squared. What can I multiply together to get x squared? X and x, right? All right, for my last term, I've got 1. What can I multiply together to get 1? 1 and 1, or negative 1 and negative 1, but will the negatives work for this one? They will not, because if I use negatives, I will probably get a negative here. And see how everything is positive for the whole problem?
Yeah.
So we don't want to use that one. So that makes this one of the easiest problems ever, because you don't have any options but 1 and 1. So this should be right. Let's check to make sure. X times x is x squared plus 1x plus 1x plus 1. And 1x plus 1x is 2x, which is what we're supposed to have. So our answer is x times x plus 1 times x plus 1. Or they might write it like this, x times x plus 1 squared, since the x plus 1 is written twice. Okay, questions? Let's do a few more before I give you guys something to do on your own. For 6, do we have a greatest common factor? No. So I'm going to do my 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, first term is 2x squared. And Blakeland, what could I multiply together to get 2x squared? What could I multiply together to get 2x squared? We don't want to put the x squared with that one. We'll put the 2x, we'll have just 1x with one and then 1x with the other. So 2x and 1x for that. And those are your only options, so you know that you're going to use those two. Then for our last term, we've got negative 15. Isabella, what can we multiply together to get negative 15? Okay. Negative 15 and 1, or 15 and negative 1. Right. So always remember you could use 1 and the number with it there. So we need to pick one to try. Haley, which one do you want to try? Negative 3, positive 5. So this is my guess, right? I don't know for sure that it's going to work. But I can check. 2x times x is 2x squared. I knew that was going to work. Then I check the outside part. 2x times 5 gives me 10x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And then I get negative 15, which I should have known was going to work. Anyway, so we're really close, right? That gives us a positive. Do we need to switch where they're at or switch their signs? switch their signs. So, because I've got a positive 7, I need a negative 7. So I'm going to make the 3 positive and the 5 negative, which will give me a negative 10 and a positive 3, which gives me negative 7x there in the middle. So this will be my answer to x plus 3 times x minus 5. Question for you. What if I wrote it this way, x minus 5 times 2x plus 3? Is that the same? Okay? It would still be the same because you're just multiplying those two things together, right? Does it matter what order you multiply expressions in? Is 2 times 3 the same as 3 times 2? It is, right? So you could write it either way. So if you're looking at like answer keys for this, or you're looking at your neighbor's work, and you see that you guys just have the two terms switched, it's fine as long as everything inside of the parentheses is still the same. Right? Okay. Questions? All right, number 7. 3 is our greatest common factor. So we're going to divide everything by 3, which means we will write a 3 out front. We will have an x squared plus 2x minus 15. All right, so our first term is x squared, which is just an x and an x. It is okay with me if you don't necessarily write that, list those every time. As you get better at this, you won't need to, but I'm going to do it for the notes so everybody's clear where we're coming from. My last term is negative 15. We actually just did that, right? 3, negative 5, negative 3, positive 5, negative 15, 1, and 15, negative 1. Okay, Evan, which one do you want to try? Negative 3 and 5. So, negative 3, positive 5. So to check this, you're checking that it multiplies back correctly. So you could just multiply the whole thing back. But the first terms should work every time, right? And the last terms should work every time because you picked specific numbers to give you the first term and the last term, right? So I'm going to do this on this problem. The inside terms give me negative 3x. The outside terms give me positive 5x. That's going to give me positive 2x. Is that what I want? Yeah, it is. Yeah. So positive 2x is what we want. Make sure you're looking at the one where you've already pulled out the GCF for that. So that is correct. So we got lucky on that one. So our answer is 3 times x minus 3 times x plus 5. When I'm checking these, I usually only look at that like inside and outside terms like I've got in red right there because I know the first terms and the last terms should work based on what numbers I picked. But if that confuses you, just multiply the whole thing out. All right, we got a few more, and then you guys will be off. Oh, this one's weird. It's not a trinomial. What is it? What's its special name? Binomial. But this one will still factor. Okay? It doesn't have a middle term. It's not going to be prime. It doesn't have a greatest common factor. So if we were only asked for greatest common factor, then it would be prime. But it is going to factor. So there is no middle term. Would it be okay for me to do this? Put a 0x in the middle. 0 times x would just be 0. So that really would just go away, right? So what's happening is if you're missing that middle term, is that the middle two terms canceled out. You got a 0 there. So I'm going to have two sets of parentheses. My first term is x squared. To get x squared, I just multiply x times x. The last term is negative 9. And Ian, what can I multiply together to get negative 9? Good. What else? Good. I'm going to not write those separate because they're kind of the same. And negative 9 and 1. Or I could switch the sign on that one too, right? So, now, just thinking so that I could do the least work. Which one do you think is going to give you a 0? Negative 3 and 3. So if I put the negative 3 and the positive 3 right here, if first term should work, these middle terms give me a negative 3x. The outside terms give me a positive 3x. What do you get when you do negative 3 and positive 3? You get 0, which is what we got. So this is factored correctly. So we got x minus 3 and x plus 3. That would be our answer there. Do you guys remember when we were multiplying, we did that worksheet that I sent home with you guys, and it had a bunch of questions that were like this, where you had like a positive and a negative of the same number there, and the middle terms canceled out every time. So that's what's happening here. We're just reversing that. Okay? All right, just a couple more. Kaylee, do we have a greatest common factor for number 9? What is it? 3. So we're going to factor out of 3. So 3 will be pulled out front. That will leave us with an x squared minus 3x minus 4. And so now we are trying to factor this into two binomials. First term is x squared, which is x times x. You're probably sick of me writing that. You don't have to write it on your paper necessarily. My last term is negative 12. Caitlin, what can I multiply together to get negative 12? Negative 3 times 4. Oh, I'm sorry. I am looking at the wrong thing. It should be negative 4. Let's go back. Mess that up. Negative 4. Alright, so Caitlin, what can I multiply to get negative 4? 1 times negative 4, and 2 times negative 2. And you can switch the negatives on either one of those if you want. I think at this point we're probably alright if I don't list those. So, which one do you want to try, Caitlin? Okay, so if we do a plus 2 and a minus 2, to check that, we'll have the 2x and the negative 2x, which would give us 0. Is that what we want to happen on this one? No. So, let's go back. Let's try the 1 and the 4. So, plus 1 minus 4. That'll give me a 1x and a negative 4x. If I put those together, I get negative 3x. Is that what I want? Are you sure? Yeah, it is what we want. We want a negative 3. So this is our answer, 3 times x plus 1 times x minus 4. Now, last one. No greatest common factor for this. First term, I'm going to have an x and an x here. Last term is a positive 6. I could use positive numbers or negative numbers, both of them, to get a positive 6. Which one should I pick for this problem? Negatives, because I've got that negative 5 in the middle. So I could do negative 2 times negative 3, or I could do negative 1 times negative 6. Now, I'm going to show you just a little trick right here. This only applies whenever you just have an x and an x. If you got like a 2 in front of this x, it doesn't work. You've got to guess and check. So this only works if you only just have an x and an x. If I add these two numbers right here together, what am I going to get? Negative 5. If I add these two together, what will I get? Negative 7, right? If I add those together. What do I want for my middle number? That negative 5. So if I pick negative 2 and negative 3 here, I'll get here a negative 2x and here a negative 3x, which gives me the negative 5x. So you can, with the ones that just have an x and an x, you can kind of start to find the right answer even before you plug in and check. So that'll keep you from guessing and checking on too much. But I wait to the very end to show you that, because it does not work on problems like number 6. Like if you go back and look at this problem number 6, my middle number is negative 7. None of those add together to give you negative 7. That's because there's a 2 in front of that x right there. So you just have to guess and check. You just have to pick one, try it, see if it works. If it doesn't, go back, try another one, right? But now if you do just have an x and an x, you can kind of look, see, like for this one, I had a 1 and negative 4. That gave me a negative 3, so that was the one to pick right there for that. Okay, questions? Okay, so what we're going to do